Hey everyone, this is Mia Horror Stories, and the title of today's horror story is I Found a Hidden Room in My Apartment, and Someone Lives There. For your comfort, the screen will stay black throughout the video, so you can relax without strain and just focus on the story. Make sure you stick around until the end. Sometimes the last few moments are the ones that stay with you the longest. The first time I noticed it, I told myself it was the building settling. A soft, deliberate click, like a latch finding its place, came from the wall behind my couch. Not loud, not dramatic, just specific enough that I paused mid-scroll and looked up at the blank stretch of paint between the bookshelf and the thermostat. In old buildings, you learn a whole language of sounds. Pipes that tick like knuckles, radiators that sigh, somebody upstairs dragging a chair across hardwood at exactly the hour you're trying to pretend you're an adult who sleeps. This click didn't belong to any of those. I held my breath for a second, listening for the follow-up footsteps, a pipe groan, anything to tuck it into a category. Nothing. The only steady noise was the low hum of my fridge and the far-off shush of tires on wet pavement from the street below. Outside, Seattle was doing what it always does in late fall, drizzle without commitment. The streetlights made the rain look thicker than it was. My living room smelled faintly of dish soap and the garlic I'd burned earlier trying to roast vegetables like someone who meal preps instead of ordering pad thai twice a week. I told myself it was explainable. It had to be. Still, my eyes kept going back to that wall. A minute later, my phone vibrated against my thigh. Text from my landlord, Miriam. Miriam, landlord. Hey, maintenance wants to check units this week. Fire inspection stuff. Can we do wet morning? I stared at it, thumb hovering. Fire inspection. That phrase always made me think of doors that don't open, stairwells that narrow, smoke where it shouldn't be. I'm not claustrophobic, exactly. I don't freak out in elevators. I can do crowded trains. But I have a very specific kind of brain that will find the one thing that could go wrong in a normal situation and rehearse it until it feels like a memory. It started when I was a kid and got stuck in a bathroom stall at a county fair. The lock jammed, and I could hear people outside laughing. And I remember the smell of sugar and fried dough coming under the door while I pushed and pushed and pushed. And no one took me seriously because, just crawl under, except I couldn't, because my legs were too long and the gap was too small, and anyway. I learned early that it's fine can be a lie people tell themselves to keep moving. Now, at 32, I still checked exits without meaning to. I still didn't like doors that clicked behind me. I typed back, Wednesday works, 9, and hit send before I could overthink it. Another click came from the same section of wall. This one was paired with a faint rasp, like something sliding against drywall. Not much. A second long sound. Then quiet again. I stood up because my body made the decision before my brain could argue. Bare feet on cool wood. The rug under my coffee table was a little damp at the edge because I'd stepped in with wet shoes yesterday and told myself I'd hang it over the balcony later. I crossed the room and put my palm against the wall. It felt normal, smooth paint, slightly warmer near where the thermostat fed heat. I pressed harder, then knocked with my knuckles, hollow, which made sense. Interior wall, wires, the usual. I knocked again, slower, mapping for studs like I'd watched a YouTube video once and decided I could do anything. Thunk. two studs, my knuckles hit a spot that didn't sound like the others. It wasn't fully solid, but it wasn't hollow either. A duller note, like a cavity with something in it. A storage niche, a patch job. One of those fake access panels buildings hide behind framed art. I leaned closer, ear almost against the paint. I could smell the wall the way you can smell paper when it's been in the sun too long. Nothing. I exhaled, half laughing at myself, and turned toward the kitchen. That's when the sound came again, not from the wall this time, but from inside the bathroom vanity. A small metallic clink. I stopped so fast my shoulder twinged, an old gym injury that liked to remind me I wasn't 25 anymore. The bathroom door was cracked open. A sliver of fluorescent light spilled out like a tongue. I didn't remember turning that light on. I walked to the bathroom, pushing the door wider with 2 fingers like it might push back. The light was on. The mirror reflected my face in that unforgiving bathroom, way paler than usual, hair not quite committing to a style, eyes a little too alert. The cabinet under the sink was shut. The drawer was shut. Nothing looked disturbed. I reached under the sink and opened the cabinet. Cleaning supplies were lined up like obedient soldiers. A bottle of bleach cleaner, rubber gloves, a half-empty box of baking soda, a roll of trash bags. And because I'm a person who pretends to be organized, a little plastic basket I'd bought at Target, labeled under sink in my own handwriting. Everything was in place, except the basket was angled slightly, like it had been nudged and not returned. That could have been me. It probably was me. But then I saw the edge of something behind the pipe, a strip of blue fabric wedged in the shadowed space behind the U-shaped drain. I stared at it long enough that my eyes started trying to make it into something else: tape, a plastic bag, a rag I'd forgotten. I reached in and pulled. It was a sock, not mine, not even close. Thick, men's athletic sock, size that would bunch on my foot. Blue with a white stripe at the top. It smelled like detergent and old sweat, faint but unmistakable, like it had been worn and then washed and then left somewhere damp. I held it between 2 fingers as if it could contaminate me through the air. My brain immediately offered explanations, because that's what it does when it's trying to keep the world manageable. Maybe the previous tenant. Maybe it slipped behind the pipe and no one noticed. Maybe Miriam's maintenance guy dropped it. Maybe, except I'd lived here for 8 months. I'd cleaned under this sink. Not obsessively, but enough that I'd seen every gross corner. I would have noticed a sock. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Okay, I know you said you're not home, but I'm in your neighborhood," my friend said. "I have a thing for you and I'm trying to be a decent human and deliver it before I forget." It was Nadia, my favorite kind of chaos, the sort that pretended to be spontaneous, but was actually just allergic to calendars. Nadia Sorkin, 34, female. Nadia worked in occupational therapy at a rehab clinic on the East Side, which meant she knew a lot about bodies in pain and had a blunt way of speaking that made you trust her even when she was being ridiculous. She was also, inconveniently, the kind of friend who noticed things you wished no one would notice. "I'm home," I said, because lying felt like extra work. "Come up, 3rd floor." "I'm already in the lobby," she said. I could hear the lobby door in the background, that heavy pneumatic hiss. "Also, your intercom sounds like a dying robot, by the way. That's not new." "I know," she said. "That's why it's a joke." I put the sock on the counter like it was evidence and washed my hands for too long, scrubbing until the skin near my thumbs felt tight. When I looked up, my own reflection was watching me like a stranger. There was another noise from the living room, faint, quick, like something tapping once against the wall. I shut the bathroom door and walked out, forcing myself to take normal steps, not the careful, creeping kind that made everything feel like a scene in a movie. The buzzer rang a minute later. I pressed the button to let Nadia in, then went to the door. She appeared in the hallway with a paper bag in one hand and her phone in the other. Hair in a messy knot, rain beading on her jacket. "Please tell me you're not doing that thing where you forget to eat again," she said, walking in like she lived here. "I brought you soup." "Bless you," I said automatically. She held up the bag like a prize. "Pho, and I stole you some extra basil because the guy at the counter has a crush on me." I tried to smile. It probably looked like I was concentrating. Nadia stopped mid-step and narrowed her eyes at me. "What's with your face?" "My face is normal." "Your face is the face you make when you're about to tell me you Googled your symptoms, and now you think you have a rare disease. It's not that." She set the bag on the kitchen counter and leaned in, sniffing. "Also, why does it smell like bleach in here? Did you finally clean? Are you okay?" "I cleaned," I said. "Sort of." Nadia's gaze flicked around the apartment, taking in the couch, the bookshelf, the wall behind it like she was cataloging the space. Her eyes landed on the thermostat, the blank wall, my shoulders, which I hadn't realized were tensed up near my ears. "What happened?" she asked, softer. I hesitated. Saying it out loud made it bigger. "I heard something," I said, "from the wall, like a latch. And then I found this." I reached for the sock on the counter and held it up. Nadia blinked. "That is a sock, not mine." "Okay," she said, stretching the word. "Do you have a secret boyfriend you're not telling me about?" "No." "Secret roommate?" "No." She took the sock from me and turned it over, nose wrinkling. "This is not a fresh sock." "Exactly." Nadia looked toward the bathroom. "Where?" "Under the sink, behind the pipe." She set the sock down like it might bite. "That's weird." I waited for her to laugh it off, to tell me I was being dramatic. Instead, she walked to the living room and stopped near the wall behind the couch. "You said you heard it from here." "Yes." She placed her palm against the wall, mirroring what I'd done. Then she leaned in, ear close. For a few seconds, there was only the everyday noise. The distant elevator ding, someone's TV muffled through the floor, the soft hiss of rain against the window. Nadia straightened. "Okay," she said. "So, 2 options. Which are? 1, you're stressed and your brain is doing that thing where it turns normal building sounds into a murder podcast." I opened my mouth. 2, she continued, cutting me off. "Something is actually off." Her eyes moved to the edge of the bookshelf, the way it sat just a fraction away from the wall, the narrow gap where dust gathered. Nadia walked over and crouched, peering behind it. "How old is this building again?" "Early 1900s, I said. "Converted like 10 years ago." "Maybe," she said, as if tasting that. She stood and put both hands on the bookshelf. It wasn't heavy, cheap particle board and paperbacks, but it took intent to move it. She slid it an inch away from the wall. I didn't stop her. I watched, throat tight, because the part of me that wanted this to be nothing also wanted to know. Behind the bookshelf, the paint looked slightly different, more matte. There was a thin, vertical seam I'd never noticed, running from a foot above the baseboard up toward the thermostat. Nadia traced it with her finger. "It's a patch," she said. My stomach did a small, unpleasant flip. It could be nothing, Nadia added quickly, like she'd heard my thoughts. A repaired hole, a conduit. But, I echoed. Nadia looked at me, her expression serious now in a way that made the room feel smaller. Do you want to call your landlord, she said, or do you want to see what's behind it? And that was the choice. The mundane, sensible option, the email, the appointment, the polite waiting. Or the other thing, the impatient itch under my skin. Because now that I'd seen the seam, I knew I wasn't going to sleep until I knew what it meant. I looked at Nadia, then at the wall. Then I nodded once. Okay, I said. Let's see. Nadia fetched a butter knife from my kitchen drawer like she was about to make toast instead of potentially open a wall. Hold on, I said. That's not a tool. It's a starter, she said. We're not demolishing anything. We're just seeing. Seeing, it turned out, required more nerve than equipment. The seam was narrow, maybe the width of a pencil line, running vertically about 4 feet. Nadia pressed the flat edge of the knife into it and twisted gently. Paint flaked. A dry, chalky smell puffed into the air like an old classroom. Nothing happened. She tried again, harder. The knife slipped, scraping the wall and leaving a crescent-shaped mark that made my stomach drop. Careful, I said, sharper than I meant to. Nadia shot me a look. You want to do it? I didn't. I also didn't want her to. This was the flaw, the thing I never liked to name. I needed to know. But I hated being the one to open doors. I'd stand at thresholds forever, weighing risks, until someone else pushed past me and made the choice real. Let's just slowly, I said. If it doesn't move, we stop. Nadia nodded and wedged the knife again, levering it with the patience she used at work, with patience relearning how to grip a spoon. There was a soft pop. Both of us froze. It wasn't loud, but it was definitive. A seal broken, air moving where it hadn't been. Nadia pulled the knife away and ran her fingers along the seam. There's something here, she said. Like a panel, she pressed. The wall gave slightly under her hand, flexing inward with a faint creak. My chest tightened. Okay, that's enough. She didn't argue. She stepped back, palms up, like she was surrendering to the wall. So, option 3, we call someone. Who? I asked. Miriam, and say what? Hi, there might be a door in my wall, Nadia shrugged. Maintenance. Non-emergency. Or we wait for Wednesday. Wednesday was 2 days away. 2 days of sleeping 6 feet from a wall that flexed when you pressed it. 2 days of listening for clicks and scrapes and telling myself not to imagine patterns. As if summoned by the thought, there was a sound from the other side of the seam. Not a click this time. A soft thud, followed by a faint, irregular rustling, like someone shifting weight on a couch. Nadia's eyes went wide. She looked at me, then back at the wall. That, she said quietly, was not the building settling. I stepped back until my calves hit the coffee table. That could be pipes. Pipes don't shuffle, she said. We stood there, the apartment suddenly too quiet, every small noise amplified. The fridge kicked on with a low groan that made me flinch. Somewhere above us, someone flushed a toilet. Life going on, indifferent. My phone buzzed in my hand. I hadn't realized I was holding it. Unknown number. I stared at the screen until it buzzed again, impatient. Answer it, Nadia whispered. Why? Because if you don't, you'll imagine it's worse than it is. She wasn't wrong, I answered. Hello. There was a pause long enough that I thought it might be a robocall. Then a voice, low and male, came through the speaker. Hi, is this Alex? My name said carefully, like it was fragile. Yes, I said, my throat felt dry. Who is this? Another pause, breathing, close to the phone. I think I might have the wrong number, the voice said. Sorry. The call disconnected. Nadia stared at my phone. You know that voice? No. Did it sound like anyone you know? No. We stood there, listening to the absence left behind by the call. That could be a coincidence, I said, hating how thin it sounded. Nadia didn't say anything. She walked to the front door and checked the lock, twisting it back and forth like she didn't quite trust it. Then she checked the deadbolt, then the chain. Okay, she said. We're not opening anything tonight. Relief and frustration tangled in my chest. So what do? We document, she said, slipping into her work voice. We make it someone else's problem as soon as possible. She pulled out her phone and started taking photos. The seam, the scuffed paint, the sock on the counter. She recorded a short video of the wall, narrating quietly like she was leaving notes for herself. Date and time, she murmured. Location. Noting sounds. I watched her, grateful and irritated at the same time. Part of me wanted to tear the panel open and flood whatever was behind it with light. Another part wanted to crawl under a blanket and pretend I'd imagined everything. Alex, Nadia said, using my name again like an anchor. Have you noticed anything else? Missing food? Stuff moved. I thought about it. The way my peanut butter jar had been emptier than expected last week. The time my shower curtain had been pushed to one side when I was sure I'd left it centered. Little things I'd shrugged off because shrugging was easier than spiraling. I don't know, I said. Maybe. That's okay, she said. We're not jumping to conclusions. Another sound came from the wall, closer this time. A faint scrape, followed by what could have been a cough quickly smothered. My heart started to race, a physical reaction I couldn't reason with. My hands tingled. Nadia's jaw tightened. Okay, she said. Change of plan. She crossed to the wall and pressed her ear against it again, listening intently. Nadia, I hissed. Don't. She held up a finger for silence. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then, muffled but unmistakable, came a voice. Not words, just a sound someone exhaling through their nose, a soft human huff. Nadia straightened slowly. There is someone in there, she said. The sentence landed between us, heavy and undeniable. We should call the police, I said immediately. Yes, she said. We should. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking enough that I had to try twice to unlock it. Before I could dial, there was a sharp knock on the door. 3 knocks. Firm, close. We both jumped. Nadia mouthed, don't answer. Another knock, louder. Alex. A voice called from the hallway. Male, different from the one on the phone. Hey, it's Mark, from downstairs. Mark was my neighbor, Mark Jensen, 41, male. We de-exchanged maybe 10 sentences in 8 months, mostly about packages left in the lobby and the way the elevator liked to stall between floors. What does he want? I whispered. Nadia shook her head, eyes darting between the door and the wall. Alex, Mark called again. I know you're home. I saw your light. The wall made a sound then, not a scrape or a click, but a solid, unmistakable thump, like someone had leaned hard against it. The knock on the door came again, more insistent. My brain did what it always did under pressure. It ran scenarios. If I answered the door, I exposed myself. If I didn't, I escalated things. If I called the police now, what did I even say? There might be someone in my wall and my neighbor is knocking. Nadia leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. Alex, she whispered, whatever you do next, don't be alone. The thump came again, closer to the seam. The knocking didn't stop. I looked at Nadia, at the wall, at the door, and realized that whatever choice I made, someone was about to cross a threshold. The knocking stopped. That was worse. Nadia and I stood frozen in the living room, the apartment suddenly balanced on a knife edge of quiet. The wall behind the bookshelf gave a faint creak, like someone shifting their weight, and then thinking better of it. "Alex," Mark called again, softer now. "I just need to talk to you for a second." I looked at Nadia. She shook her head once. "Not yet." I put my phone to my ear and dialed 911, then hesitated with my thumb hovering over the call button. The script in my head unraveled as fast as I tried to assemble it. "Hello, yes, there's someone possibly inside my wall." It sounded absurd even to me. Nadia mouthed speaker. I hit call and put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency?" I think someone is inside my apartment," I said, like inside the walls. There was a pause, the operator recalibrating. "Can you tell me your address?" I did. My voice shook, which annoyed me, which made it worse. "Are you alone in the apartment?" "No, I have a friend with me." Another knock at the door, sharper this time. Mark didn't wait for an answer. "Alex, seriously, open the door." The operator heard it. "Is that the person you're referring to?" "No," I said quickly. "That's my neighbor, I think." Nadia leaned over and whispered, "Ask how long they'll take." "How long for officers to arrive?" I asked. "Units are currently tied up," the operator said carefully. "It may be some time. If you're not in immediate danger, I recommend staying put and keeping your doors locked." The wall thumped again, harder. The bookshelf rattled. Nadia flinched. "That counts as danger," the operator's voice sharpened. "Ma'am, are you hearing that noise now?" "Yes," Nadia said. "We are." "All right," the operator said. "I'm updating the call." The line stayed open, a thin tether. Mark knocked again, then tried the handle. It didn't turn, but the metallic rattle sent a jolt through me. "Like this," Nadia said. "We have a person behind a wall and a man at the door. We need information." Attempt 1. The door. Nadia moved toward the front door, staying out of the peephole's direct line. She crouched slightly and whispered, "Mark, hey." There was a pause. "Oh, hey, is everything okay?" "No," she said flatly. "Why are you here?" I heard something," Mark said. "From your place, thumping. Like furniture falling over. I was checking if you were okay." I swallowed. That was plausible. Too plausible. "You tried the handle," Nadia said. "Yeah," Mark said, defensive. "Because you didn't answer." I didn't know if another thump from the wall, louder than before, followed by a scraping sound that traveled upward, like hands sliding against the inside surface. Mark went quiet. "That," Nadia said, "is why we didn't answer." "What the hell was that?" Mark asked. "We're not sure," Nadia said, "but we've called the police." Silence. Then, "Jesus," Mark muttered. His footsteps retreated a few paces, then stopped. "Okay, I'll wait downstairs. Call me if you need anything." We heard the elevator ding, doors open, close. The operator exhaled audibly. "Good, keep distance from the door." Attempt 1 result, partial success. Mark backed off. No answers. Attempt 2. The wall. Nadia paced the narrow strip between the couch and the coffee table, rubbing her arms like she was cold. "We need to know how big that space is." "I don't want to open it," I said. "I know," she said, "but listening isn't cutting it." She grabbed my phone charger from the outlet and unplugged it. Flashlight. She knelt by the bookshelf and shined the light along the seam. The beam caught uneven paint, hairline cracks radiating outward like stress marks. The wall thumped again, then nothing. I leaned in despite myself, pressing my ear to the cool paint. The sound on the other side was unmistakably human now, breathing, shallow and quick. A faint wheeze. "Can you hear me?" She said, raising her voice slightly. "Who's in there?" Silence. I said. A sudden bang exploded from the other side, right where her face had been seconds earlier. Nadia yelped and fell back, hitting the edge of the coffee table hard enough to knock the air out of her. Nadia, I dropped to my knees beside her. I'm okay, she gasped, but her face was pale. She pressed a hand to her ribs, wincing. Just startled. The operator's voice cut in. What was that noise? Impact, I said, from the wall. All right, the operator said. I need you both to move to a safer area of the apartment if possible. Safer. The word felt ironic. Attempt to result. Injury, confirmation of proximity. Misdirection, a new sound joined the chaos. A high-pitched whine that rose quickly into a shriek. The smoke alarm. Oh my God, I said. Is there a fire? My heart slammed into my throat. Fire meant smoke. Smoke meant nowhere to go. Nadia forced herself upright. No, she said, squinting up. Look. The alarm near the kitchen blinked red, then stopped as abruptly as it started. Low battery, she said. It does that sometimes when it gets jostled. Sure enough, the tiny LED pulsed weakly. My knees nearly gave out with relief that felt disproportionate, but very real, explainable. Not everything was a threat, but the adrenaline didn't leave. It pooled, heavy and sour. New fact revealed as the room settled, another detail emerged. A smell, not smoke, not food, stale air. Like a closet that hadn't been opened in years. It drifted from the seam, faint but unmistakable. There's airflow, Nadia said. That means it connects somewhere. Another unit or a shaft. Which means, I said slowly, this isn't just my apartment. Point of no return, the wall groaned, a deep structural sound that made the floor vibrate. A crack snaked outward from the seam, splitting the paint with a dry snap. Oh no, Nadia whispered. Alex, the bookshelf lurched forward, as if pushed from behind. Books spilled onto the rug, thudding and sliding. The panel bowed outward, no longer pretending to be a wall. I backed toward the kitchen, pulse roaring in my ears. Nadia grabbed my wrist, her grip tight despite the pain. The operator was talking, voice urgent now, but I barely heard her. With a final, splintering pop, the seam gave way. The panel shifted, just enough to reveal darkness beyond, and a hand, pale and shaking, forced through the gap, fingers grasping blindly for purchase. There was no closing it now, no pretending it was nothing. Whatever was in my wall was coming out. The hand didn't lunge. That was the first, strangest thing. It just hung there in the gap, fingers trembling, nails bitten short. The skin was pale with a grayish undertone, like it hadn't seen real light in a long time. A wrist followed, then stalled, as if whatever was attached to it had run out of room or courage. Don't, Nadia said, hoarse. She was half crouched near the kitchen doorway, one arm wrapped tight around her ribs, eyes fixed on the wall. Don't touch it. I'm not, I said, though my body had already leaned forward without permission. The 911 operator was still on speaker, her voice thin and distant, repeating my address like a mantra. Officers are en route. The words felt abstract, like something that applied to another version of this apartment. The hand flexed. Fingertips scraped the paint, leaving faint crescent marks. A voice came through the gap, not loud, barely more than breath. Please, one word, dry, cracked. It hit harder than shouting would have. Please, the voice said again. Male, young maybe. I'm stuck. Nadia swore under her breath. Alex, back up. I can't, I said, because the word stuck had found the soft part of my brain and pressed. I took a step closer, heart hammering so hard it made me lightheaded. The gap was only a few inches wide. The broken panel bowed outward like a ribcage forced open. Beyond it was darkness, and that stale, breath-held smell. "How did you get in there?" I asked. The hand dropped slightly, fingers curling against the inside edge. I don't know, I do." But a cough cut him off, wet and ugly. I flinched back despite myself. "Slow," Nadia said. "Talk slow." The voice took a shuddering breath. "There's a space between units. They told you who?" I asked. "Maintenance," he said. "Not your maintenance. The old guys before the conversion." My stomach twisted. "They said it was empty," he went on. "Just dead space. That I could stay a few nights. I had a key for the access door." "What access door?" Nadia demanded. There was a pause. Then, quieter, they closed it. Something shifted behind the wall, followed by a sharp intake of breath and a muffled curse. "He's moving," Nadia said. "Alex, if that wall goes all at once." Another crack split the paint, louder than the last. The bookshelf shuddered again, its remaining books sliding to the floor. Plaster dust rained down, stinging my eyes. The man cried out, a sound that wasn't pain exactly, more like panic with nowhere to go. "I can't breathe," he said. "Please." "Can't." My chest tightened, phantom pressure blooming under my sternum. This was it. The thing I'd rehearsed my whole life and never thought I'd face in my own living room. "No," I said to the wall, to my body, to the memory of a locked stall and the smell of fried dough. "No, no, no." I forced myself to breathe out. "In, out." "Nadia," I said. "The breaker." She blinked. "What? If there's an access door, it might be electric. Lock, alarm, kill the power." She stared at me for half a second, then nodded. Okay. She moved down the short hallway toward the breaker panel by the bedroom, one hand skimming the wall for balance. I heard the panel door clang open. "Alex," the operator said. "Sir, officers are 2 minutes out. Do not attempt a rescue if it puts you at risk." I didn't answer. The man behind the wall started coughing again, harder this time. The sound echoed oddly, like it was bouncing through ducts. "Hey," I said, crouching so I was level with the gap. "Hey, look at me." "What's your name?" A pause. "Evan," he said. "Evan Miller." "How long have you been in there, Evan?" Since yesterday, I think." I fell asleep. The panel shifted. I couldn't push it back. "Yesterday, my apartment, my shower, my couch, while someone lay trapped inches away." The breaker panel clicked. The apartment lights flickered, then went out. The fridge died mid-hum. The only light came from my phone and Nadia's, shaky beams cutting through dust. From somewhere beyond the wall, there was a distant metallic thunk, followed by another. "That's it," Nadia called. Something unlocked. The panel shuddered violently, then gave way in a cascade of plaster and old wood. I threw my arm up instinctively as debris clattered to the floor. Behind it wasn't a room so much as a wedge-shaped cavity, maybe 3 feet deep at its widest, tapering off into darkness. Evan was wedged inside, knees drawn up, one shoulder pinned at an unnatural angle. His face was streaked with grime and sweat, eyes blown wide with fear. "Okay," Nadia said, back at my side now, breathing hard. "Okay. We can't pull him straight out. He's stuck on the shoulder." Evan whimpered. "It hurts." "I know," she said, voice steady despite the pain she was clearly in. "I know. We're going to go slow." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, impossibly far away. I braced my feet against the floor, hands slipping on plaster dust as I widened the opening inch by inch, ignoring the burn in my arms. Nadia guided Evan's shoulder, talking constantly, grounding him, grounding me. "On 3, she said. 1, 2, the wall groaned ominously. Stop, I said. Wait. Another crack. The ceiling above the gap sagged slightly, hairline fractures spidering outward. If it collapsed now, Nadia said. We do it now or not at all. We pulled. Evan screamed. I felt something give, plaster, wood, or flesh. I couldn't tell. Pain flared in my own shoulder as I overextended, a hot, blinding spike. Then Evan was out, collapsing onto the rug in a heap of limbs and dust, gasping like a swimmer breaking the surface. I fell back against the couch, shaking uncontrollably. For a second, no one moved. The apartment was a wreck. Books everywhere, a jagged hole in the wall breathing stale air, the smell of old insulation and fear. Then footsteps thundered in the hallway. Voices. The door shook as someone tried the handle. Police, someone shouted. Nadia laughed once, sharp and broken, then sat down hard on the floor, cradling her ribs. Evan curled on his side, coughing, eyes tracking the hole in the wall like it might reach for him again. As officers flooded the apartment, radios crackling, the operator finally disconnected. I watched gloved hands, heard questions, felt a paramedic grip my shoulder too tightly as they checked my pupils. My shoulder throbbed. Nadia's face was gray with pain. Evan was loaded onto a stretcher, oxygen mask fogging with each breath. An officer led me aside, away from the wall. You okay? He asked. I nodded automatically, then shook my head. No, I said, and meant it in a way that had nothing to do with injuries. As they wheeled Evan out, his eyes met mine. I didn't mean to, he said. I just needed a place. I believed him. That didn't make the space behind my wall any less real. They taped plastic over the hole before they taped anything else. A maintenance crew arrived an hour after the police, all fluorescent vests and apologetic shrugs, and stretched thick, translucent sheeting across the jagged opening like they were closing a wound they didn't want to look at. The plastic snapped softly every time the heat kicked on, a sound I would later realize I couldn't unhear. An officer walked me through what would happen next, while a paramedic wrapped my shoulder in a brace that smelled like antiseptic and latex. He used words like incident report and temporary relocation and building code violation. He said you did the right thing with the practiced cadence of someone who said it a lot. Nadia sat on the edge of my kitchen chair, holding an ice pack to her ribs, jaw clenched. She kept nodding at things she wasn't really listening to. When I caught her eye, she forced a smile that didn't stick. Evan left on a stretcher. I watched them take him down the hallway, oxygen mask fogging with each breath, hands fidgeting with the blanket like he was afraid it might be taken away. An EMT told me he was dehydrated, hypoxic, lucky. Lucky felt like a strange word to apply to someone who'd spent a night wedged in the bones of a building. Before the doors closed, Evan looked back at me. Thank you, he said. His voice was steadier now. The panic burned off and replaced with something like exhaustion. I know I messed up, I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. The building manager, someone I'd never seen before, not Miriam, arrived with a clipboard and a face carefully arranged into concern. He promised an investigation. He promised cooperation. He didn't promise answers, not really. By midnight, the apartment was quiet again. Too quiet. The police left. The maintenance crew left. Nadia insisted on staying, even though her ribs hurt and she had work in the morning. I'm not leaving you alone tonight, she said, unarguable. We sat on the couch, surrounded by debris, books piled haphazardly on the coffee table, a fine dust coating everything like pollen. The plastic over the wall glowed faintly in the ambient light from the street, rising and falling almost imperceptibly as air moved behind it. I stared at it until Nadia nudged my knee with her foot. "Stop," she said gently. "You're going to burn that image into your brain." "Too late," I said. She huffed a laugh, then winced. "Ow, don't make me laugh." We didn't talk much after that. There wasn't anything left to say that would make it better. Sleep came in pieces. Every time I drifted off, I dreamed of pressure of walls inching closer, of hands grasping for leverage. I woke up tangled in the blanket, heart racing, listening for sounds that might not be there. In the morning, my phone was full of messages. Miriam apologized. The building management apologized. A lawyer left a voicemail. My insurance company wanted photos. The city wanted statements. I took pictures of the plastic-covered wall, the cracked paint radiating outward like fault lines. I took a picture of the breaker panel, still open, a reminder of how close improvisation had come to disaster. 2 days later, an inspector condemned the unit temporarily. "Unsafe for habitation," he said, tapping his pen against the clipboard. He explained load-bearing structures and illegal modifications. He didn't speculate out loud, but the implication hung there. This wasn't an accident so much as an inevitability. They moved me into a short-term rental across town, a place that smelled faintly of new carpet and someone else's detergent. Everything worked. The doors closed cleanly. The walls were solid. I still slept with the lights on. Nadia healed slowly. She sent me a photo of the bruise blooming across her side like an oil slick, captioned occupational hazard. She joked about it, but I could hear the edge in her voice when we talked. She started double-checking locks at night, she admitted. Not out of fear, she said, just habit. Evan sent a message through a mutual contact at the hospital. He was going to be okay. He'd been charged with trespassing, technically, but the DA was considering the circumstances. He said he was done trusting shortcuts, done trusting people who said it's fine without proof. I understood that more than I wanted to. Weeks passed. The story faded into background noise, replaced by other headlines, other crises. Friends asked how I was doing with the careful tone reserved for things that might break if handled wrong. "I'm fine," I said, because it was easier. When I was finally allowed back into the apartment to collect my things, the wall was no longer plastic. It was new drywall, freshly painted, seamless. If you didn't know where to look, you'd never guess anything had been there at all. I stood in the living room, keys heavy in my hand, and pressed my palm against the spot where the seam had been. Solid. "Good as new," the contractor said, cheerful. "You won't have any more trouble." I nodded, thanked him, watched him leave. Alone again, I walked through the space slowly. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, everything where it should be. Ordinary. In the bathroom, I opened the cabinet under the sink. My cleaning supplies were back in their places. The basket labeled under sink sat square and obedient. I closed the door. As I turned off the light, there was a faint sound, not a click this time, but a soft rush, like air redistributing itself through hidden channels. Explainable, I told myself. Buildings breathe. I locked the door behind me and left the keys on the counter for the last time. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street smelled clean, scrubbed. People walked past, phones in hand, lives continuing without pause. I stepped into the flow and let it carry me. aware now of how thin the walls really were, how close ordinary life pressed against unseen spaces. Most days, that awareness faded. Some nights, when everything was quiet, it came back. The shadows fade for now, but the stories never end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and join our community of horror lovers. If you're hungry for more, check out the next video. Just remember, the scariest part is often the one you don't see coming. Hey friends, it's your girl Mia. This is Mia Horror Stories, and tonight's story title is Told in Darkness. The screen will stay black, so you can simply listen, imagine, and feel every moment without distraction. Trust me, the build-up matters, and the ending is where the real chill hides. So don't look away, and don't leave early. The first time I saw it, I tried to make it make sense in the laziest way possible. I was on my knees in the front hall, half in the light from the open door, half in the dim that always pooled under the staircase. The air smelled like wet wool and the lemony floor cleaner I'd used the night before. A delivery truck grumbled somewhere down the street, the sound bouncing off row houses the way it does in South Philadelphia, and my phone kept vibrating on the floorboards where I'd tossed it, 2 texts in a row, then a pause, then another. The break from normalcy was small. A hinge squeak that wasn't mine. A draft that didn't match the weather app. The kind of thing you tell yourself is just the house settling. Except it wasn't a draft. It was a paper edge. A small square of off-white paper was peeking out from under the baseboard trim, right where the shoe rack sat. Like someone had slid a note into the seam, and the house had slowly exhaled it back out. I pinched it between my fingers and pulled. The paper didn't tear. It moved smoothly, as if it had never been stuck, as if it was waiting. It wasn't a note. It was the corner of a cover, black, textured, the kind you see on cheap journals. The whole thing came free with a soft rasp, leaving nothing behind but dust and the faint line where it had been pressed against the wall. I sat back on my heels, holding the notebook like it might stain me. On the cover, in silver pen, there were 2 words, Marakaliani. My name, not printed, not a label. The letters were slightly uneven, the way mine get when I'm rushing. The A looked like a tent. The K had a hard angle, a thin smear at the end of the E like the ink had dragged. I stared at it until my eyes started doing that unfocused thing they do when you've been staring too hard. And then my phone buzzed again and snapped me back. Hey, I said out loud to nobody, because it felt better than letting the quiet fill up again. My voice sounded too loud in the hallway. Okay. I set the notebook on the floor like it might suddenly bite, and grabbed my phone. Jess, you up? Jess, did you move my plant? I thumbed back with the impatience of someone clinging to normal conversation like a railing. Me, I'm up. No, why would I move your plant? Me, also, I found something weird. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Jess, define weird. Me, a journal with my name. Under the baseboard. Jess, lol, what? Under the baseboard. Me, like tucked there. I don't know. I glanced toward the living room, where the couch and the coffee table and the mess of everyday life waited. Yesterday's mail, a takeout menu, my keys on the little ceramic dish shaped like a fish. All familiar, all mine. The kind of clutter that's comforting because it means nobody staging your life. My hand still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. The notebook smelled like nothing. I picked it up again. The cover flexed under my thumb. There was a faint indentation near the spine, like it had been pressed against something for a long time. Maybe it's yours, I called toward the kitchen, because Jess was supposed to be home. Because she'd been home last night. Because I'd heard her come in, I thought I had. The click of the front lock. The soft thunk of her boots. The way she always sighed like she'd been carrying a heavy bag even when she hadn't. No answer. I checked the shoe rack. My sneakers, Jess's Doc Martens, her running shoes. So she'd left recently. Or she hadn't come back at all, and I'd imagined the sounds, which was possible. I hated that it was possible. I didn't sleep well. I never did, not lately. My brain loved to throw up little illusions when I was tired. Shadows that weren't there. The sound of a cabinet closing when the dishwasher hadn't even been touched. That was the private flaw I hated admitting. I could be wrong in ways that felt real. I slid my thumb under the cover. The first page wasn't blank. It wasn't full either. It had a date at the top in my handwriting, October 14, and underneath, a single line. I keep thinking if I write it down, it will stop being real. My stomach did a slow, sinking turn. Not a dramatic one, not a movie one, just a quiet physical reaction, like the body knows something before the mind catches up. I flipped the page. More handwriting. Mine. The same uneven pressure, the same habit of crossing T's too far to the right, the same little hook at the end of my Y's. I had diaries. I wasn't a diary person exactly, but after my mom died, after everything got complicated and paperwork heavy, and people kept asking me, "How are you doing?" in that voice, I'd started writing in a cheap notebook at night, just to dump the day somewhere that wasn't my head. It was messy. It was private. It lived in my nightstand drawer under old charging cables and a half-finished crossword book. This notebook was not that notebook. I flipped through quickly, the pages fluttering against my thumb. Each one had dates, fragments, sentences that felt like mine in tone, if not in memory. Mentions of my job. Mention of a meeting with D, a doodle in the margin of a tiny square apartment layout, which made me laugh under my breath because I did that when I was stressed. Draw boxes, doors, possible exits. The laugh died fast because I didn't remember writing any of it. My phone buzzed again, a call this time, Jess. I answered too fast. Hey. A pause filled with street noise on her end, traffic, an engine idling, a horn that sounded impatient and close. Okay, Jess said. First, I did not move your baseboards. I didn't think you did. And second, she went on, I'm literally outside the Home Depot on Columbus. I went to grab spackle because the corner of my room looks like it's melting, and I figured I'd fix it before you noticed, and decided I'm secretly a raccoon. You are secretly a raccoon. Thank you, so, the journal. Where exactly did you find it? Front hall, I said, lowering my voice even though there was no one to overhear. Under the trim, like it was stored there. Jess exhaled, and I could picture her face. Eyebrows pulled together, mouth tight. Jess did not like mysteries in her own space. She liked problems you could solve with a list and a trip to a store and a receipt. "Okay," she said, "don't touch anything else. Like, don't go digging. I'll be back in 15. "I already touched it," I said, and held the notebook up like the house might somehow see the gesture and take offense. I opened it. "Of course you did. It has my handwriting." Another pause. The idling engine on her end ticked like a metronome. "Mara," Jess said carefully, "do you think it's like a prank? From your brother or something?" "My brother doesn't know where I live," I said too quickly. My throat felt dry. "And he doesn't do pranks. He does passive aggression." Okay, I'm coming back. Put it somewhere safe." "It feels dumb to call the cops over a notebook," I said. "I didn't say cops. I said safe." I looked down the hall again. The house felt normal in all the big ways, sturdy, familiar. The faint hum of the fridge, the radiator pinging softly even though it wasn't cold enough to be on. But my attention snagged on tiny things now. The slight misalignment of the coat hooks, the scuff on the wall by the light switch, the way the lock on the front door looked like it had been turned 1,000 times. "I can put it in the kitchen drawer," I said. "No," Jess said instantly. "Don't put it where food is." "Right. Put it in a bag," she said. "Like a Ziploc. You have those, right?" "I have sandwich bags." "Perfect. Bag it. Don't write in it. Don't rip anything out. And this is important. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting. This is weird. It can be weird without being paranormal or whatever, but it's still weird." My grip on the notebook tightened, and the cover creaked faintly. "Jess," I said, and I heard the tightness in my own voice, the part of me that always wanted to make the world smooth again. "What if I did write this and I just forgot? Like sleep deprivation, stress." Jess didn't immediately reassure me, which was both cruel and kind. "I mean," she said slowly, "you're stressed. You work too much. You barely eat real food unless I cook. But you don't lose weeks of memory. That's not you." The words landed heavier than I expected, because she was right. My fear wasn't that the notebook meant someone else had been in my house. My fear was that it didn't, that the explanation was inside my own skull, and I had no handle on it. A car door slammed on her end. "I'm getting in the car," she said. "I'm leaving now. Don't do anything heroic." "I'm not heroic," I muttered, and managed a shaky half smile. "Good, because I need you alive so you can keep paying your half of the Wi-Fi." The call ended. I stood there in the front hall, notebook in hand, phone cold against my palm. The house made its regular noises. A pipe shifted. The neighbor's dog barked once, then stopped. Somewhere upstairs, something creaked, not a footstep, just the old wood responding to temperature. I walked into the kitchen and pulled open the drawer with the plastic bags. The drawer stuck slightly, as it always did, then gave. The sound was normal, annoying, predictable. I slid the journal into a sandwich bag and pressed it closed, the plastic crackling loud in the small room. For a second, bagging it made it feel like evidence. Something that belonged to a story where someone competent takes over, and tells you what to do next. But I was still the one standing here. I turned the bagged notebook over in my hands. Through the plastic, my name looked slightly warped, like the letters were underwater. Jess would be back soon. We could do something sensible. Check the locks. Maybe ask the neighbors if they'd seen anyone. Maybe look around for other weirdness. Or I could do the other thing, the thing my brain wanted to do, even as my gut warned me off. Keep reading, right now, alone, because the pages were already open in my mind, like a door I'd accidentally cracked. I set the bag on the table. My fingers hovered over it. Upstairs, the house made another small creak. I didn't move for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone and opened my camera app, the way people do when they want proof for themselves later. And I had to decide, wait for Jess and do this slowly, or keep going alone and find out what exactly I supposedly wrote. Jess was still shaking rain out of her jacket when the smoke alarm chirped. Not the full scream, just the single, sharp peep that makes your shoulders jump because it sounds like a warning trying to clear its throat. We both froze. Don't, Jess said automatically, holding up a hand like I was about to touch a hot stove. Don't ignore that. I wasn't going to, I said, even though a part of me absolutely was. The house had a way of making noises that meant nothing. Old wiring, pipes, the radiator pretending it still had a job. My private flaw exposed again. I minimized first, investigated later. The alarm didn't chirp again. Jess set the Home Depot bag down on the kitchen table, next to the plastic-wrapped notebook. The spackle bucket thunked softly, white lid smudged with blue paint from some earlier life. She noticed the notebook immediately. You bagged it, she said, approval and tension mixed in her voice. Good. I took pictures, I said, and showed her my phone. The camera roll was a neat little horror. The journal under the baseboard, the close-up of my name, the first page with the date. Seeing it through a screen made it feel more official and less real at the same time. Jess scrolled, jaw tightening. Jesus, that really is your handwriting. I know. She didn't argue. That scared me more than if she had. The smoke alarm chirped again, from somewhere upstairs this time. The sound bounced down the narrow stairwell, metallic and thin. Low battery, Jess said, but she didn't sound convinced. Or something else. Something else like what? She shrugged out of her jacket. Like carbon monoxide, like a bad sensor, like the universe reminding us it exists. My stomach sank in a slow, practical way. Carbon monoxide had come up once before, months ago, when a coworker's cousin woke up with a headache and didn't wake up again. It was one of those stories you file under unlikely, but unforgiving. Do you have a co-detector? Jess asked. Downstairs, I said, by the laundry. And upstairs. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I think so. Jess's look sharpened. You think or you know? I think. She exhaled through her nose. Okay, we're checking now. The house felt different when we moved through it together. Less like a container for my thoughts, and more like a space with corners that needed accounting for. Jess took the stairs 2 at a time. I followed, phone in hand, filming without quite deciding to. The chirp came again as we reached the landing. The alarm outside the spare room blinked red, then went dark. "Battery," Jess said again, and reached up. "Wait," I said. "What if?" She stopped, fingers hovering. What? What if it's not the battery? What if it's like telling us something? Jess stared at me. "Mara, I love you. But if you're about to suggest the alarm knows about your diary, I'm going to need you to take a nap." "That's not what I meant," I said, embarrassed and relieved at the same time. "I just mean, what if the house isn't safe?" Jess's expression softened, then hardened again into something practical. "That's exactly why we're checking." She popped the alarm open. The battery was corroded, a little white crust around the edges. "There," she said, "see, old battery." "Okay," I said, but my heartbeat didn't slow. Because if it was just an old battery, then the timing was cruel. And if it wasn't, then the explanation got worse. We checked the other alarms. 2 more chirps, 2 more dying batteries. Jess lined the spent ones up on the bathroom counter like evidence. The code detector downstairs was quiet, its little green light steady. "So," she said, hands on her hips, "no obvious poison gas. That's good." "That's good," I echoed. We went back to the kitchen. The rain had picked up outside, tapping against the window in uneven bursts. Jess tore open the spackle bucket and started mixing, the repetitive scrape of plastic on plastic filling the room. "You don't have to fix the wall right now," I said. "I do," she said. "I need to do something with my hands." "Fair." I watched her for a moment, then reached for the notebook despite myself. "Mara," Jess warned. "I'm not opening it," I said. "I just want to look at it." The plastic crinkled as I lifted it. Through the bag, the cover seemed thicker than it should have been. I tilted it, and something slid inside with a soft, internal thump. I froze. "What?" Jess said. "There's something else in it." She set the spackle knife down slowly. "Inside the bag." "No, inside the journal." "Okay," she said carefully. "Put it down." "I already have it." "Put it down." I did, setting it flat on the table. The bagged journal lay there, innocent as a lunch. Jess wiped her hands on a paper towel and leaned in. "Don't open it yet," she said. "We think first." "Think what?" My voice sounded thin. "Think timeline," she said. "When could someone have been in the house long enough to hide that? Who has keys? Who knows your schedule?" I swallowed. "The landlord, the plumber, you, me. Anyone else?" "No." She nodded like she'd expected that. "Okay. Then here's the time-sensitive part." She pulled her phone out and checked the time. "Your landlord texted yesterday about the gas company inspection, right?" "Yeah," I said. "They're supposed to come sometime today, between noon and 4. Jess met my eyes. "It's almost noon." The words clicked into place with a dull thud. "If someone hid that," she said, "and if they're coming back today, for any reason, we need to know before they're inside this house again." "You think the gas guy?" "I think we don't know who the gas guy actually is," Jess said. "And I think you minimizing things is not helping us right now." That stung because it was true. My phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. I stared at it like it might be contagious. "Answer it," Jess said. I put it on speaker. "Hello," a man's voice, cheerful and distant. "Hi, this is Tom with City Gas. We're running a bit ahead of schedule. We'll be there in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. A clean, unforgiving number. "Okay," I said, too fast. "Thanks for letting us know." The call ended. Jess was already moving. "Locks," she said. "We checked them now, all of them." We split up. I went to the back door, fingers fumbling with the deadbolt. Locked. The basement door locked. Windows latched, the one in the spare room stuck slightly, the wood swollen from moisture. "Jess," I called. "This one doesn't close all the way." "I'm coming," she said. She pushed on it, frowned. "It's old, probably always like that." I don't remember it being like that. My memory felt like a bad witness, suddenly under oath. Jess grabbed a chair and jammed it under the handle. Temporary. The notebook sat alone on the kitchen table, silent and patient. "We should call the landlord," I said. "We should," Jess agreed. "And maybe the non-emergency line, just to log it." The phone rang again. Same unknown number. Jess and I looked at each other. "That was fast," she said. I answered. "Mara," the man said. Same voice. "Hey, small thing, we might need access to the basement meter. Is there a separate entrance?" Or, "There's a separate entrance," I said, and felt the wrongness of it immediately. "I mean, no, we'll let you in." I hung up, heart pounding. "What did you say?" Jess demanded. "I said we'd let him in." She stared at me. "Why would you say that?" "I don't know," I said, panic rising. My brain." She grabbed my shoulders. "Listen to me. You don't have to be polite. You don't have to make this smooth. If something is wrong, you are allowed to make it awkward." A knock sounded at the front door. Not loud, not aggressive, just present. Jess's phone buzzed with a text from the landlord at the exact same moment. "Landlord, gas inspection started early today. Let them know if there are any issues." We stood there, the notebook between us, the knock echoing softly again. And then, from inside the plastic bag on the table, something slid once more, as if settling into place. The knock came again, firmer this time, knuckles against wood. 3 taps. A pause, 2 more. Jess mouthed, "Don't open it," and pointed toward the kitchen window that looked out onto the narrow back alley. I shook my head. Fire escape on the 2nd floor, trash cans below, slick with rain. Not an exit unless we were desperate. I took a breath, wiped my palms on my jeans, and opened the door just enough to see the man on the stoop. He was younger than I expected. Early 30s. Clean jacket with a stitched logo, dark hair plastered down by rain. He held a clipboard under one arm and a phone in his other hand. "Mara Klein?" he asked, already smiling like the answer was yes. "That's me," I said. "Tom," he said, tapping the logo. "City Gas. Sorry to rush you. We had a cancellation up the block." Jess hovered just behind me, visible enough to matter. "Come on in," I said, and hated myself for how automatic it sounded. Tom stepped into the front hall, wiping his boots on the mat without being asked. His eyes flicked, quick and professional, taking in the coat hooks, the shoe rack, the narrow staircase. He smelled faintly of rain and aftershave. "I'll need access to the basement meter," he said, "and the kitchen line." "Basement through the back," Jess said. Her voice was polite but tight. "Kitchen's right here." "Great," Tom said. "This won't take long." That was the first attempt. Let him do the job. Stay alert. Watch for anything off script. If he was just a worker, we'd feel stupid and relieved in equal measure. Tom set his clipboard on the kitchen counter. His gaze snagged on the plastic-wrapped notebook on the table. "What's that?" he asked lightly. I moved without thinking, sliding it closer to me. "Nothing." Jess shot me a look. "Smooth," it said. Tom didn't push. He knelt by the stove, pulling a small tool from his jacket pocket. Metal clicked softly. The sound seemed too loud. "Any issues lately?" he asked. "Smells, headaches, alarms going off." "All of the above," I said, then winced. "I mean just the alarms. Batteries." "Old houses," he said, like a blessing and a curse in one phrase. He worked for a few minutes, methodical. I watched his hands, the way his fingers moved with familiarity, the way he didn't hesitate. He seemed real, ordinary. The fear in my chest loosened a notch. Then he stood and turned, not toward the back door, but toward the stairs. "Basement's this way, right?" he said. "No," Jess said sharply. "Back door, through the kitchen." Tom blinked. Landlord's note said front access." "There is no front access," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Tom raised his hands slightly, placating. "My mistake. Long day." He went the right way then, boots thudding softly on the kitchen tile, through the back door, and down the narrow steps to the basement. The door closed behind him with a hollow clap. Jess exhaled. "Okay, that was weird." "Not illegal weird," I said. "Not yet." We hovered by the basement door, listening. The house settled around us. Pipes groaned. Somewhere, water dripped. Normal basement noises, amplified by our nerves. Minutes passed, 5, 10. "Is it supposed to take this long?" I whispered. Jess checked her phone. "Inspection should be quick." That was the second attempt. "Call the landlord, verify Tom's presence, make this official." Jess stepped into the living room for better reception. "Hey," she said into her phone. "Quick question. Who did you send for the gas inspection?" I stayed by the basement door. The notebook lay heavy in my hands now, the plastic warm from my grip. I could hear Tom moving below metal clanks, a soft grunt. Real work sounds. Then a thud, not metallic, dull, like something dropped that wasn't supposed to be. "Tom," I called. No answer. Another thud, closer this time, followed by a scrape. My heart kicked up. I pictured him forcing something open, finding a hidden crawl space, a place I didn't know existed because I didn't want to know my house that well. "Mara," Jess called from the living room. The landlord's not answering. The basement door handle rattled. I jumped back. The door opened, and Tom came up the steps, breathing a little harder than before. His jacket was damp at the cuffs, smeared with something dark. "Everything okay?" I asked stupidly. "Yeah," he said too fast. "Just old latch down there, stuck." He glanced at the notebook again. This time, His eyes lingered. "Did you say you were having alarms go off?" he asked. "Yes," Jess said, rejoining us. "Why?" He frowned. "I'm getting a slight reading down there. Not dangerous, but..." The smoke alarm upstairs screamed. Not a chirp, a full, shrill wail that ripped through the house. I clapped my hands over my ears. The sound tunneled straight into my skull. "That's not low battery," Tom said. "No kidding," Jess shouted. We bolted up the stairs. The alarm outside the spare room flashed red. The air felt thicker suddenly, warmer, like before a storm. "Get out," Tom said. "Probably nothing, but protocol, get outside." That was the misdirection, the terrifying thing with a clean explanation later. In the chaos, I tripped on the last step, my shin cracking against the banister. Pain flared sharp and hot. I hissed, but kept moving. We spilled onto the front stoop, rain soaking through our clothes. Neighbors' curtains twitched. The alarm wailed on. Tom pulled out his phone, tapping fast. "Dispatch," he said. "Possible leak." "Yeah." Jess grabbed my arm. "Are you okay?" "My leg," I said. And then the notebook. She looked back inside, panic flashing. "It's still on the table." "I can get it," Tom said, already moving. "No," I said, grabbing his sleeve. "Leave it." He paused, eyes meeting mine. Something unreadable passed over his face. The fire truck arrived fast, lights washing the street in red. Firefighters moved through the house with practiced efficiency, shutting off the gas, ventilating. One of them found the cause. A faulty connector behind the stove jostled loose during the inspection. Real, explainable. As they worked, one firefighter called out, "Anyone else supposed to be here?" "No," Jess said. "Why?" "There's someone's bag in the basement," he said. "Didn't look like ours." My blood didn't run cold. It went hot, then hollow. "What kind of bag?" I asked. "Backpack," he said. "Black." Tom was gone. Not dramatically. No sprinting, no shouting. Just absent. His clipboard still on the counter. His jacket hook empty by the door. Police came next. Questions. Notes. A neighbor said they'd seen a man leave out the back alley a few minutes before the fire truck arrived, hood up, head down. An officer bagged the notebook at our insistence. As he did, the plastic tore slightly, and something slipped free onto the table. A key. Not ours. The officer frowned. "Where'd this come from?" I knew without knowing. The shape of it, the wear pattern. Basement padlock. Old. Familiar in a way that made my teeth ache. Jess squeezed my hand until it hurt. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, the house felt breached, mapped by someone else's hands. When the officers asked if we wanted to stay somewhere else that night, Jess said yes before I could open my mouth. As they walked us out, I looked back at the front hall, the baseboard seam, the shoe rack, the place where normal had cracked. There was no going back to before now. They didn't let us back in right away. Protocol, the officer said. Ventilation. Paperwork. They stood on the sidewalk wrapped in borrowed blankets, my shin throbbing in time with my pulse. The rain eased into a mist, the street smelling like wet concrete and exhaust. The key sat in an evidence bag on the hood of the cruiser. I couldn't stop staring at it. "What does it open?" the officer asked. I shook my head. "I don't know." Jess did. She didn't say it out loud at first. She just squeezed my hand once hard, then nodded toward the back of the house, toward the narrow alley that ran behind the row. "The old storage cage," she said. "In the basement. Previous tenants kept bikes there." The officer's pen paused. "There's a padlock." "There was," Jess said. "We never used it." The officer looked at the house, then at the alley. He made a call. 10 minutes later, they let us back in with 2 officers staying close, boots echoing on the stairs. The house smelled wrong now, sweet and metallic, gas dissipating, but not gone. Fans hummed where firefighters had set them, pushing air through open windows. The spare room window with the chair jammed under the handle rattled in the breeze. Down the basement steps, the light flickered once, then steadied. The backpack sat where the firefighter had left it, slumped against the wall. Black nylon, a zipper half open. The padlock was still there, hanging from the storage cage door like a dull tooth. The officer nodded to Jess. "You can unlock it if you want." My hand shook when I took the key. The lock opened with a soft, anticlimactic click. Inside the cage, a folding chair, dusty, a plastic bin with cleaning supplies that weren't ours, and a clipboard. Tom's clipboard. Under it, a cheap burner phone, dead. The officer lifted the clipboard. The top sheet wasn't an inspection form. It was a printed map, our house, sketched from memory. Rooms labeled, measurements scribbled, notes in the margins. Front hall squeaks at third board. Spare window sticks, force from inside. Basement latch jams oil. My handwriting wasn't on that page. Jess swore quietly. "Bag it," the officer said to his partner. "All of it." Upstairs, while they catalogued, I sat on the bottom step and opened my phone. The pictures I'd taken earlier felt like a dare now. I scrolled to the diary shots, zoomed in on dates. October 14, October 18, October 21. Today was October 21. "I need the notebook," I said. The officer hesitated. "It's evidence." "I know," I said. "I wrote it, I think, please." He considered, then nodded. "You can read it. Don't touch anything." Jess brought it to me, plastic torn where the key had slipped out. I opened to the last dated page. "If you're reading this, and it's the day I think it is, don't let him move you outside. He wants the alley. He wants the basement when it's loud." My mouth went dry. Another line, smaller, like it had been added later. "He comes back when he thinks the mess covers him." A thud sounded at the back of the house. Not inside, outside, Ellie side. The officer's head snapped up. "Stay here." They moved fast. I didn't. My legs felt thick, my shins screaming when I stood. Jess grabbed my elbow. "Don't," she whispered. "I know," I said, already limping toward the kitchen. The back door stood ajar from the ventilation. Rain misted in. The alley was a narrow throat of brick and shadow, trash cans lining the walls like teeth. A shape moved. "Police," one officer called. "Show me your hands." The shape bolted. The chase was ugly and short. Slick ground. A body slamming into cans. A shout. By the time Jess and I reached the threshold, Tom was on the ground, face scraped, one arm pinned awkwardly under him. Blood mixed with rain, thin and bright. "I didn't hurt anyone," he said, breathless. "I didn't." "You cut the gas," the officer said, cuffing him. "I didn't know it would," he winced as they hauled him up. "I just needed time." "For what?" Jess demanded. Tom looked at me then, really looked. His eyes were tired, feverish. "To watch," he said, "to learn you." Something inside my chest hardened, like plaster setting. Back inside, with Tom in the cruiser and the alley cordoned, the house felt smaller, invasive in a new way. The officers took statements. They told us about the backpack gloves, a headlamp, copies of our utility bills, real, boring stocking tools. "You're lucky," one officer said, not unkindly. "You noticed when you did." I laughed once sharp. Did I? They left after dusk, promising follow-up. The fans stayed. The windows stayed open. The gas stayed off. Jess and I sat on the kitchen floor, backs against the cabinets. The notebook lay between us, open now. "I wrote this," I asked. Jess didn't answer right away. She traced the edge of a page. "Some of it," she said. "The fear reads like you. The details, those are his." "How could he?" "Practice," she said. "People do that. They copy. He hid it where you'd find it when you were tired, made you doubt yourself." My shin throbbed. My head did too. The cost settled in, not a dramatic collapse, just a steady ache. We didn't sleep that night. We packed a bag. When we left, I stopped in the front hall. The baseboard seam looked ordinary again. I pressed my thumb to it, then pulled it away. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. The house stood there, brick and mortar, innocent as anything. Resolved, they'd said. I locked the door and kept the key tight in my fist until it hurt. They took me to urgent care because my shin wouldn't stop swelling. And because the adrenaline had worn off enough for the pain to finally arrive, heavy and insistent. It was a clean injury, a deep bruise, some soft tissue damage, nothing dramatic. The clinician pressed along the bone with practiced fingers and asked me to rate the pain on a scale that never quite fits. Jess sat in the corner chair, scrolling through her phone without really looking at it, her knee bouncing. When the clinician wrapped my leg and told me to ice it and take ibuprofen, I felt embarrassed by how relieved I was. Something about being told this will heal felt like permission to keep going. We didn't go home. Jess drove us to her sister's place across town, a third-floor walk-up that smelled like coffee grounds and basil. The couch was too short, the blankets mismatched. Ordinary inconveniences pressed in and grounded me. I slept in fragments, waking every hour to check the door, the windows, the little chain lock I'd never paid attention to before. In the morning, the world did what it always does after something bad. It kept happening. A detective called. He asked careful questions about timelines and access, about the diary. He told me they'd confirmed Tom wasn't employed by City Gas. The logo was convincing. The paperwork was. He'd done this before different cities, different covers. No prior convictions that would have stopped him from walking free until now. They're charging him, the detective said. Stalking, impersonation, endangerment. I thanked him like he'd returned a lost wallet. My landlord emailed an apology that read like a template, promised new locks, promised reimbursement, promised inspections that would be scheduled and supervised. The gas company sent a letter too, crisp and official, explaining the faulty connector and the steps taken. Paper stacked up, thin armor against the memory of rain in the alley, and a voice saying I just needed time. I didn't read the diary again. The police returned it in a clear evidence bag a week later, the seal intact, the pages stiff inside. I held it with two hands like it was a box that might hum if I shook it. Jess watched me from the doorway, ready to intervene, ready to let me choose. I put it in the bottom of my bag and didn't open it. Control in small, stubborn gestures. I went back to work on Monday. My coworkers tried not to stare at the limp. They asked if I was okay in the careful way people do when they don't want details. I told them I fell on the stairs. It was true enough. I focused on my screen, on emails, on tasks that began and ended cleanly. At night, I wrote in my real diary again, the one from the nightstand. I wrote about the smell of basil at Jess's sister's place, about the way my hands shook when I unlocked a door, about the sound of fans humming in an empty house. I wrote dates. I wrote times. I wrote lists. Writing stopped being a confession and became a record. The house took longer. We went back together, Jess and I, after the locks were changed and the windows fixed and the landlord's contractor signed off on everything. The fans were gone. The air smelled like paint and lemon cleaner again. The baseboard seam in the front hall was patched, smooth now, the line erased. I stood there longer than I needed to. You don't have to stay, Jess said gently. We can grab your stuff and go. I know, I said, and then after a beat, I want to. We moved room by room, slow and deliberate. I mapped it again with my feet, with my eyes. The coat hooks were straight. The sticky kitchen drawer had been sanded. The spare room window closed with a satisfying click. In the basement, the storage cage was empty, the padlock gone, the floor swept clean. Ordinary reassembled. The first night back, I slept with the lights off and the bedroom door locked. I dreamed of lists that wouldn't end, of maps without labels. I woke before dawn to the sound of a truck passing and felt my heart race anyway. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I could laugh at how much fear I'd carried. Other days I flinched at knocks, at unexpected calls. Jess stayed over more often than she said she would. We didn't talk about it much. We talked about groceries, about work, about the neighbor's dog. Trauma, we discovered, didn't need narration to exist. The case moved forward. A court date. A plea. I didn't have to testify in person. I watched from a screen in a small room that smelled like old carpet, Tom's face flattened by bad lighting, his eyes down. When it was over, I felt nothing like triumph, just tired. Months later, when winter edged in, I found the evidence bag at the back of my closet. I hadn't meant to keep it. It had followed me home in a fog of paperwork and exhaustion. I took it out and sat on the bed. The seal was still intact, the pages still stiff. I told myself I didn't need to open it to know what was inside. That the story had ended where it should. That nothing good waited there. I slid it back into the closet. Downstairs, the house made its normal noises. Pipes settling, the faint click of the thermostat, a neighbor's laugh through the wall. I made tea. I iced my leg out of habit more than need. I checked the locks twice, and then, deliberately, didn't check them again. Later, as I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed with a notification from my notes app. A draft I didn't remember starting. Untitled. It contained a single line, time-stamped earlier that evening. Remember to replace the batteries. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. The app asked if I was sure. I was. I went to bed. That's it for this nightmare. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on notifications. It really helps keep the stories alive. And don't stop here. Dive into another one of our videos and keep the fear going. Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, I found my doppelganger online, and it found me as best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. The first wrong thing was the reflection in the bakery window. It wasn't mine. Not exactly. It was the same gray coat, the same cheap umbrella with a bite taken out of one panel, the same coil of hair slipped from a barrette. But the jawline in the glass was a fraction sharper, the posture slightly straighter, as if a speech therapist had taught my mirror to stand with purpose. I shifted left. The reflection shifted a heartbeat late, like a video with bad audio. The espresso machine barked. Someone laughed too loud. I blinked, and the pain offered me back my own face again, soft around the cheeks from winter pastries. Eyes sleep-puffed. A smear of mascara I'd missed. Explainable. Glass angles, the jumpy daydream brain, the distraction of the rain. I'm Mara. Full name, Mara Keene. 31, perpetually between haircuts. A London-based UX designer who collects mugs and drafts emails I never send. I've lived near Bethnal Green for 3 years, in a second-floor flat with a hissing radiator and the kind of light that makes your skin look honest. This morning's errand list: grab a cardamom bun, answer 2 clients before noon, and try again to get my file export to behave. I wanted calm precision, small boxes ticked in neat rows. That was the motive, at least. Morning, Mara. You're late, said the guy behind the counter, grinning like we had a joke only the 2 of us knew. Alfie Briscoe, 26, male. Alfie is the sort of barista who remembers orders the way other people remember childhood phone numbers. He once drawn a fox in my latte foam when he learned I had a fox sticker on my laptop. His nails are always clean. He hates blueberry muffins for reasons he has explained 3 separate times. I'll never be early, I said, tapping my phone to the contactless reader. The terminal chirped. The radio behind him was stuck on a station that plays 90s hits at a whisper, like a guilty memory. Already paid, he said. You popped in like 20 minutes ago. Said you were back for the bun. I gave you the student discount. Don't tell my boss. I waited for him to laugh again. He didn't. The espresso hissed. The door thumped open. Someone shook rain from their jacket like a dog. The tiny bell on the door trilled. I wasn't here, I said, choosing a light tone that didn't quite land. I've been at home failing to compress a PDF. Alfie's grin faltered, then returned to its post. Okay, sure. Must have been your twin then. He slid the bun over in its flimsy paper cradle. Sugar dust lifted and settled. You left your umbrella, by the way, he ducked, produced a second umbrella identical to mine. Black, one panel missing a tooth along the rib. So, now you've got two. I held both handles. Same nick in the foam grip. Same faint vanilla smell where I'd once spilled a candle. The rationalizations lined up like apologetic schoolchildren. Maybe I left the umbrella yesterday and someone else borrowed it. Maybe umbrellas are more common than we think, and vanilla is universal, like lint. Maybe Alfie was mixing up faces. I could feel myself performing calm. Outside, the street was the color of dishwater. Bicycles moved like quiet machinery through the drizzle. On the corner, Mrs. Patel was wrestling a roll of bin bags into place and muttering at the wind. Indira Mrs. Patel, 58, female. She manages the shop 2 doors down that sells both party supplies and laundry baskets, which seems like a metaphor for adulthood. She keeps a suspicious eye on everyone, but once pressed a blister plaster into my palm when she caught me limping after a run. Morning, I said. She squinted. Morning again, she said. You dropped this earlier. She held up a blue wool beanie with a thread pulled loose near the hem. Mine. I never left the flat without it in winter because my ears complain like old hinges. Thanks, I said, sliding it into my tote. Inside the tote, tethered hardware security key on a lanyard work notebook, a half-eaten cereal bar. The key felt heavier than usual, a coin of certainty against my palm. I like two-factor everything. I like doors with chains. I like to know which mirror is mine. Upstairs, my radiator clattered like cutlery in a drawer. My email had multiplied in the hour I'd been gone. Subject lines breeding like rabbits. Ari, quick tweak. /invoice query /last minute help. The flat smelled faintly of kettle steam and damp laundry. I set the duplicate umbrella next to my real one and told myself I'd deal with that later, along with the plant that was dying in a stubborn, accusatory way. My phone nudged my hand. A notification from a neighborhood forum, some thread I never muted. The preview showed a photo snapped through glass. A woman at the bakery counter, face in profile, bun in her hand. My gray coat, my scarf, my hair. The caption, anyone know this person? She left her card behind. Thought I recognized her from the estate. Lovely coat. I enlarged it until the pixels showed their seams. The shadow of a small scar under the left brow. Mine, from a dumb teenage bike crash outside a Boots in Brighton, where I'd overbraked on wet leaves. The woman's ear had the same silver hoop. Mine, bought in an airport when a different flight was delayed. Same, same, same. The comments were banal and neighborly. Someone said, "Looks like Mara from the 3rd floor," with a smile emoji. Someone else said, "She works in design, I think." Harmless. Except it wasn't me. Except Alfie's "You're late," and Mrs. Patel again, and 2 umbrellas lined up like a visual joke that didn't land. I messaged the Threads poster. "Hi, that looks like me, but I wasn't there this morning," then deleted the sentence. I tried again. "Hi, I think I know her. I can grab the card." Delete. What if I sounded defensive? What if I made something small into something large? This is my flaw. I do not confront until the house is already on fire. I accumulative avoid. My laptop pinged with a Teams call from a client who always sits too close to her camera. I put the beanie on my desk and breathed through my mouth. Frozen pizza smell drifted from the downstairs flat. Somewhere, a scooter roared past like a hairdryer. I accepted the call. "Hey, Mara," said the woman on the screen, bright and manicured. "Charlotte Charlie Duval, 34, female." Charlie is the marketing lead for a mid-sized heritage brand that sells waterproof coats to people who like pretending they're going on expeditions. She is unfailingly kind, but speaks in bullet points, even when gossiping. I like her, which is rare for clients. "We loved the prototype," she said. "Small snag, legal wants to see your ID in the onboarding portal again. It says your verification failed this morning. Did you resubmit?" "No," I said. The radiator sighed, as if bored of my answers. I bumped my mouse, and the screensaver dissolved into the dashboard I had last left. "I haven't logged in today." "Okay," she said slowly, head tilt, human BS detector flickering. Weird. It shows a successful login from clicks on her end. "From your usual IP." Like exactly your IP. 2-factor approved. My security key sat exactly where I'd left it. The lanyard was twisted, as if recently handled. The steel felt cool and ordinary between my fingers. A plausible explanation formed. Cached approvals, someone at legal clicking wrong, a JIRA ticket gone feral. Still, my mouth tasted like copper pennies. "Let me check," I said. I pulled up the portal. The button, retry identity verification. A thumbnail of my passport page sat above it, my 19-year-old face telling me to get on with it. The timestamp of the failed attempt, 9:12 a.m., the timestamp of the successful login, 9:14 a.m. I was in the bakery at 9:12, watching my reflection argue with me. I might have been in the bakery at 9:14 too, depending on whose morning you believed. On the sticky note stuck to the edge of my monitor, in my own handwriting. Email Mum Ray, consultant forms, and don't forget gate code change Thurs. The gate code hadn't changed in a year. I'd written that last night after the management company's notice slid under doors like a timid apology. Everyone knew the new code would leak within a day. Codes, like gossip, never stay put. My phone buzzed again. Instagram. A new account tagged me in a story. The username was a string of letters and numbers that meant nothing. The thumbnail was my face, badly lit, bending over the bakery counter while I laughed at something outside frame. There was no caption, just the mention, at Maricane, my private account. Only friends and clients. Tagged by what? By who? I screenshotted. I blocked the account. I unblocked it to look again. The story had a second clip. My back, crossing the street toward my building. The blue beanie pulled low, the umbrella just so. The angle suggested it was filmed from the window of the flat directly across from mine. Someone's television glowed cold in the reflection. The sound was off. The caption said nothing. A knock rang on my door in 3 impatient taps. "Hold on," I called, heart doing something unhelpful. I peered through the peephole. Jamie filled it, freckled and wet-haired, holding a paper bag like a Triumph banner. Jamie Price, 32, male. Jamie is my friend-turned-downstairs neighbor after a breakup rearranged his life. He's a primary school teacher who can silence 30 children with one raised eyebrow, but panics when a kettle whistles. We share Wi-Fi, occasional dinners, and a commitment to keeping each other's spare keys in mismatched mugs by our doors. "Brought you the good crisps," he said as I opened, pushing past with the ease of longtime friends. "Also, did you just come back? I thought I saw you go in about 10 minutes ago." Didn't say hi and then felt rude. "But, Jamie," I said, "I've been here." He stopped mid-shrug. He smelled like rain and classroom sanitizer. "Okay, that's sure." He produced the crisps like evidence. "You've got flour on your coat," he added, brushing a ghostly smear from my sleeve. His fingers hesitated. "Or no, sorry. Maybe I'm imagining it." We stood in the narrow hall, the radiator heat pushing at our shins. The flat felt 1 inch too crowded, as if an extra life had been played in it and left a residue. On my phone, the anonymous account's story ticked down its seconds. I realized, with a small, ridiculous jolt, that my rubbish bag was still by the door. I hate leaving rubbish by the door. The tiny fail felt suddenly like a beacon. "Look," I said, and showed him the story. He watched, mouth tight. "That's your coat," he said. "It isn't me," I said. He drew the words out slowly. "So either someone is messing with you, or there's a face filter thing, or some AI video crap, or it is you and you're sleepwalking and also filming yourself. None of these options are fun." He scratched his jaw. "We should do something boring and sensible immediately." We stood there with the sensible options lined up. Go across the street and ask who posted it, march back to the bakery, and ask about the card. Email the client with a dry explanation. Change the gate code on principle, call 101, and ask a board operator what to do when your day is slightly wrong around the edges. Or, least sensible, but most tempting, pretend none of this happened and go back to work, because deadlines are more real than ghosts. Jamie flipped my security key lanyard with a finger, making it spin. It circled, slowed, pointed toward the door like a compass. "Report it," he said. "Or don't. Your call." He watched me the way you watch a traffic light that has stayed yellow too long. I looked at the portal on my screen. The retry identity verification button, ready to collapse one uncertainty or create another. My phone offered the report story option. My fingers hovered, the pads of them warm and damp. "Which first?" Jamie asked. The radiator clicked. The utensils in the jar by the hob trembled each time upstairs. Washing machine hit a spin. Rain hushed against the windows like someone shushing a room. I picked up my beanie. I picked up one umbrella, then the other, absurdly heavy now that they were two. We could cross the street and knock, walk into the ordinary, and make it give up its secrets. Or I could sit down, press the verification button, and see if the system believed me more than it believed the morning. I held both choices at arm's length, feeling the slight sway of each. The radiator had just settled into its usual hissing lull when Jamie said, "All right, let's pick one. Report it or march over there. Sitting here refreshing apps isn't a plan." His voice was too loud for my narrow kitchen. The sound bounced off the cupboards, sharp as cutlery. I wanted quiet. Time to line up my reasons like neat rows of icons. Instead, my laptop chimed with another email, subject line in aggressive caps. "Urgent, invoice paid to alt account." My stomach pitched. "What?" Jamie asked. I tilted the screen toward him. The email was from our finance contact at the waterproof coat company, not some spam domain. "Just confirming you requested payment reroute this morning," it read. "Since it came through with your approval chain." "I didn't," I whispered. Jamie scrubbed a hand down his face. "So someone's not just pretending to be you. They're moving money with your name on it." I thought of my flaw, the way I avoid direct confrontation until the problem metastasizes. This wasn't a leaky tap I could ignore. It was my credibility, my job. If I stayed quiet, if I let emails pile up while I rationalized, I could lose everything. "We call Charlie," Jamie said, already reaching for my phone. "No," I said too quickly. "If it's a mistake, I'll look paranoid." His eyebrows rose. "And if it is?" The flat smelled faintly metallic, like damp wires. I realized my hands were shaking against the laptop trackpad. "Okay, I'll email her. Casual. Just check what she saw." Before I could draft a sentence, my phone buzzed again. WhatsApp. An unknown number had dropped a pin location 3 streets over, near a row of derelict workshops. The message, "Come collect what you left." Attached, a photo. My tote bag, the one currently hanging on my chair, slumped against cracked pavement like a discarded skin. Jamie leaned closer. "That's your bag." "It's here," I said, pointing. Keys, notebook, half-eaten cereal bar, all accounted for. I checked the photo again. Same bag, same knot in the strap, same cereal bar wrapper sticking out like a tongue. "Could be an old photo," Jamie said, though his voice lacked conviction. Or staged. Either way, they want you to come. Which is exactly why I won't. We stared at the pin pulsing on the screen. The rational thing was obvious. Ignore it. Forward everything to the police. Change passwords. Let processes grind slowly into action. But my chest buzzed with a different urgency. What if someone already reported me for fraud? What if the company locked me out before I could prove myself? Jamie tapped the table. Listen, I finish lessons at 3. I can skip prep, go with you to the workshops. Quick look, then police. If it's nothing, we've wasted half an hour. It's not nothing, I said. My throat felt lined with sand. A sharp knock rattled the door. 3 raps, spaced perfectly, like someone trained to knock that way. Not Jamie's messy rhythm, not Mrs. Patel's fluttery tap. We froze. The knock came again, then silence, then the faint squeal of trainers on the stairwell as footsteps retreated. I checked the peephole. The corridor was empty. Jamie swore softly. They know where you live. Of course they do. You've been tagged, filmed. They're playing. I pressed both umbrellas into the corner behind the door, as if duplicates might breed into a solution. My phone buzzed once more. Another message from the unknown number. Tick, T-O-C-K. I hated deadlines. They made me rush, skip steps, miss details. And now the problem had a clock. We call the police, Jamie said firmly. You don't play their game. You report the impersonation, the threats. Done. I nodded, but my chest squeezed. The police meant reports, waiting rooms. The risk they'd dismiss it as digital noise until money was truly gone or someone got hurt. Meanwhile, the company's finance team might freeze me out. My reputation was fragile enough without looking incompetent or compromised. The radiator gave a long groan, followed by a clunk, as if something heavy shifted in the pipes. The sound made me jump. Jamie touched my arm. Mara, decide. I opened my mouth, but the laptop dinged again. Another email. This one shorter. Hi Mara, just confirming you'll be at the workshop site for handover. 1 p.m. sharp. Best, L. No signature, no company footer. Just the letter L the time. 1 hour from now. My fear sharpened into something close to anger. They were dragging me into a meeting I hadn't agreed to. Using my name, scheduling my body like it was theirs to book. Jamie's face hardened. If you don't go, they'll go without you. Use your name anyway. If you do go, he didn't finish. The air tasted sour, like the inside of an envelope. I thought of my private flaw again. How much I wanted to minimize, delay, let someone else decide. But here the choice was binary. Show up or don't. Either way, something happened with my name attached. Jamie said quietly, we could bring someone. Alfie on shift, he saw her too. Mrs. Patel's nosy enough to stand watch. Or just the police, straight up. The idea of involving neighbors made me feel exposed, fragile. But doing nothing left my identity flapping in the wind. 04. We have less than an hour, I said. Jamie folded his arms. So we go now, together, before they decide what else you've agreed to. The radiator hissed again, water scalding somewhere inside. The umbrellas dripped faintly in their corner, though neither of us had touched them. I grabbed my beanie, pulled it tight, and slung my tote, my actual tote, over my shoulder. We stepped into the hall. The door clicked shut behind us, with a sound far louder than usual. We cut across the estate toward the derelict workshops, rain misting harder with each block. My tote strap dug into my shoulder like a reminder. The bag was here, real, while its twin had already been staged. Jamie walked half a step ahead, shoulders hunched, the paper bag of crisps abandoned on my counter like a relic from a safer hour. Bethnal Green Road throbbed with buses and impatient horns, but the side street narrowed quickly into silence. Warehouses lined the lane, their windows blacked by grime and plywood. The kind of place you'd expect spray paint and teenagers, not official handover meetings. Looks like a set from a cheap crime show, Jamie muttered. I tried to laugh, but my throat closed. My trainers slipped on damp leaves that had plastered themselves to the uneven pavement. Half a mile behind us, the main road was still visible. The cafe, the shops, Mrs. Patel's gaudy balloon display. Half a mile might as well have been another continent. We stopped at the corner where the pin pulsed on my phone. Unit 14, an old workshop with corrugated shutters pulled down halfway, chained, but not locked. Someone had spray painted a crude crown above the door. The air smelled of wet metal and burnt wiring. Jamie checked his watch. 12:48. We're early. Want to call the police now and have them meet us here? I wanted to say yes, but my chest tightened at the thought of explaining shadows and umbrellas to a dispatcher. Let's just look. Quick. We circled the building. The rear had a broken fence, gaps wide enough to squeeze through. Mud clung to my soles, slick and cold. Inside the fence, the yard was scattered with debris, splintered pallets, rusted cans, a shopping trolley overturned on its side. That's when we saw the tote. It lay propped against the shutter, just as in the photo. Same knot in the strap, same half-exposed cereal bar wrapper. I crouched, reaching, then froze. The cereal bar was gone. Jamie knelt beside me, scanning the ground. They moved it or swapped it, which means they're close, I finished. The words trembled out. We both straightened, scanning the yard. No movement, just the drip of rain through a cracked gutter, the faint rattle of a can shifting in wind. I forced myself forward, grabbed the bag, and yanked it open. Empty. No notebook, no keys, no wrapper. Just a single sheet of printer paper folded twice. Inside, printed in a font too clean for its setting, "Try again." My fingers went numb around the page. They're laughing at us. Jamie took the bag, slung it crosswise like a shield. Fine, that's attempt one. We checked, found nothing. Now we leave. but leaving wasn't simple. As we cut back toward the street, a black Vauxhall with tinted windows turned the corner and idled at the curb. Engine low, steady, too purposeful. My pulse slammed. "Don't look at it," Jamie said. We walked faster. The car rolled forward, matching pace. My breath stuttered. I imagined doors opening, hands pulling us inside, my name added to headlines about missing women. We broke into a jog. At the corner, Jamie yanked me behind a skip. We crouched in the stench of old paint and rotting cardboard. The car's engine droned closer, then stopped. My heart clawed at my ribs. Seconds stretched. Then came the thud of doors, boots on wet tarmac, a voice. "Mail, board. Yeah, just here for the meter reading." I risked a glance. 2 men in high-vis jackets, clipboards under their arms, walking to the opposite unit. The car wasn't tinted menace. It was a contractor's pool vehicle. Relief burst so sharp it hurt. I laughed, a jagged sound. God, I thought. "Don't apologize for caution," Jamie snapped, though his shoulders sagged in relief too. "But we're burning time. We've got 10 minutes until 1. What now?" I checked my phone. Another message had arrived during our panic. Final chance. Gate code or job. The estate's gate code, the change scheduled for Thursday. My note on the sticky by my monitor. Someone wanted it early. If they had access, they could pass as residents, intercept parcels, enter flats. "This is about the building," I whispered. "Not just me." Jamie's face hardened. "Then we go back, warn Patel, warn the rest." We turned toward the main road. That's when I realized my security key lanyard was gone. My hand fumbled at the tote pocket, but the ring was empty. Cold air flooded my chest. "It was clipped here," I said, panic rising. I checked before we left. Jamie grabbed my shoulders. "Could have dropped when you crouched, or someone took it." The thought made me dizzy. That key was me, my proof, my second factor. Without it, the system believed them more than it believed me. We retraced steps to the shutter, scanning the mud. Nothing. The lanyard was simply gone. "This is attempt 2, Jamie said grimly. We came for answers, lost more instead. We're done. We go home, call the police." I wanted to agree, but my phone buzzed again. A new message, this time with a photo, my front door, taken from the stairwell. The note taped to it in thick marker. "See you inside." My legs weakened. They'd been in the building. Maybe while we were here, maybe now. Jamie swore. "That's it, no debate. We're calling it in." I shook my head. "If they're inside already, the police will take an hour. I can't let them sit in my flat. My things." His jaw flexed. "So what? We rush back and walk straight into them." The choice snapped, taut between us. Retreat meant handing over my home, my accounts, my very name, until authorities caught up. Confrontation meant danger immediate, tangible, a stairwell away. I thought of the radiators groan, the utensils rattling, All those little domestic sounds, bass lines. If anything sounded off when we opened that door, we'd know. Jamie's eyes searched mine. If we go back now, Mara, there's no undoing it. That's point of no return. I adjusted the beanie on my head, rain dripping off the edge. The workshops loomed behind us. The road ahead felt endless. And my flat, my refuge, had just been claimed by someone else. I'm not letting them own my space, I said. My voice was hoarse but steady. We're going back. We reached the estate just before 1. The rain had thickened to a wet curtain, making the courtyard's puddles glint like open eyes. My breath steamed as we stopped at the outer gate. I punched the old code into the keypad. The bolt clicked open, no resistance. If they wanted the new code, it meant the old one still worked for now. Inside, the familiar geometry of brick and iron railings wrapped around us. But the rhythm was wrong. A stroller abandoned near the bins. Mail scattered across the walkway, soggy envelopes clinging to one another. Curtains drawn at windows, usually left open for daytime light. The whole place felt paused. Jamie put a hand on my arm. We don't go in loud. If they're inside, we listen first. I nodded, though my heart drummed too fast for listening. We climbed the stairwell, each creak of the steps magnified. The smell of bleach from Patel's cleaning bucket mixed with something else, cigarette smoke, sharp and unfamiliar. Halfway up, I froze. My door was in sight. The note taped across it, "See you inside," was gone. Jamie whispered, "They've been back." We edged closer. My tote strap cut deeper into my shoulder, every movement loud in my body. At my door, the lock looked untouched, but the radiator inside hummed faintly. Too faint. Usually, it clattered like a drunk percussionist when warming up. Now it purred like a secret. Jamie mouthed, "Baseline." I understood. Something had changed. He reached into his jacket and produced a heavy maglite torch. "For light," he said, too casual. But we both knew it was also a weapon. I slid my key into the lock, turning it slowly. The latch clicked, louder than thunder. We pushed the door open. The flat smelled wrong. Not just lived-in wrong, stranger wrong. A hint of unfamiliar aftershave, a chemical tang of wipes not mine. We stepped inside. The living room was tidy. Too tidy. My dying plant had been trimmed back, its brown leaves clipped neatly into the bin. The utensils that rattled in their jar were now stacked in exact order: spoons, then forks, then knives. My skin prickled. Then I saw the umbrellas. Both propped side by side, handles aligned perfectly. "Jesus," Jamie muttered. From the bedroom came a sound. Not footsteps. A single cough, muffled, as though someone tried to swallow it down. Jamie's hand tightened on the torch. He nodded once. I stepped behind him, clutching my beanie like a talisman. He pushed the bedroom door. It swung inward. A man stood at my desk, back turned. He wore my gray coat, my scarf, my beanie stretched tight over cropped hair. My security key dangled from his lanyard as he typed calmly on my laptop. The sight hit me harder than any horror film. Not a supernatural twin, not some glitch in the glass. A man wearing me, inhabiting me, bending my space into his. "Stop," Jamie said, voice low but firm. The man froze. Then he turned. His face wasn't mine. Not really. It was close enough that at a glance, in poor light, in a blurred photo, you'd think it was. Similar jawline, same scar near the brow, makeup darkened it. Contact lenses tinted his eyes to match mine. He smiled slightly, as if embarrassed at being caught. "You're early." His accent was London, clipped, too precise. My mouth worked without sound. Jamie advanced a step. Put the key down, step back. The man raised both hands, palms out, security key dangling. "No need to panic. We're just smoothing an overlap. You weren't using the access properly." I was. "You stole from me," I managed. My throat scraped. He tilted his head. "Only what you didn't value." His gaze flicked to me, then to Jamie, measuring. "We can share if you like." Jamie shifted, ready to lunge. The man saw it. His smile hardened. He moved first, quick, reaching for the laptop. Jamie swung the torch, connecting with a dull crack against the man's shoulder. He staggered, cursed, then drove forward. The laptop clattered to the floor. I grabbed the nearest thing, the duplicate umbrella, and swung. It snapped open between us like a shield. The man shoved it aside, striking my temple with an elbow. Stars burst behind my eyes. Jamie tackled him, both crashing into the radiator. The hiss spiked, water spattering the floor. They grappled, grunting, the torch clattering away. The man's hand shot for the key, still looped around his neck. Adrenaline cut through my fog. I dove, yanking the lanyard hard enough to burn my palm. The cord snapped. I stumbled back, clutching the key. The man lunged after me. Jamie caught his arm, twisting. The man roared in pain, but shoved Jamie into the desk, scattering mugs and cables. I fled into the kitchen, the key in one hand, umbrella in the other. My chest heaved, ribs screaming from the elbow hit. The man followed, fast, eyes locked on the lanyard. I flung the umbrella again, this time stabbing with the point. It caught him in the ribs. He hissed, faltered. Jamie slammed into his back, pinning him against the counter. "Go," Jamie shouted. "Take the key." I hesitated, every instinct to stay, to not abandon him. But the man twisted, nearly breaking free. Jamie's face strained red with the effort of holding him. I ran. Out the door, down the stairwell, legs barely working. My ears rang with echoes of struggle upstairs. On the street, air sliced my lungs. I clutched the key, rain slicking my face. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped it. I dialed emergency. My voice cracked but got the words out. "Intruder, my flat. He's still inside. My neighbor sends someone now." I turned back toward the building. The stairwell window glowed faintly. A shadow crossed fast, then another. A crash, like furniture toppling. Minutes later, but it felt like years, sirens wailed closer. Blue lights splashed across wet brick. Officers surged inside. They brought Jamie out first, limping, lips split, but alive. He clung to my shoulder, muttering, "He's tougher than he looked." The man came out next, cuffed, coat slipping from his shoulders. Without the scarf, the beanie, the lenses, he was just a man, ordinary, forgettable. And yet his eyes found mine, steady, as though none of this was defeat. The officer asked for the key. I couldn't unclench my fist to hand it over. My palm was sliced raw where the lanyard had burned, blood mingling with rainwater. As they shoved him into the back of the van, he spoke not to them, but to me. "See you again," he said, softly enough that only I heard. The flat smelled of disinfectant and copper hours later. Blue gloves and muddy boot prints tracked across the floor where officers had moved in and out, photographing, bagging, sealing. My radiator sat silent now, the pipe dented where the struggle had thrown them against it. The sound of it hissing, its ordinary chaos, was gone. I hadn't realized until then how much I depended on that background noise. Jamie sat on my sofa, an ice pack pressed to his jaw. The split in his lip had already stiffened into a swollen line. His knuckles scraped raw. His school would get a different kind of story from him tomorrow, if he could even go in. He kept saying he was fine, though he flinched each time the door slammed below as neighbors came home. "They'll ask me to ID him tomorrow," I said quietly, leaning against the doorframe. The police had already shown me his wallet, real name, real address in another borough. 33, a data contractor with a criminal record for fraud. Nothing extraordinary, which somehow made it worse. "Don't you dare go alone," Jamie said. "You'll want someone next to you when they say his name out loud." I nodded, though I wasn't sure what good names did. He wasn't a ghost to banish by calling. He was flesh, and he'd been in my space, brushing crumbs from my desk as though it were his. The officers had taken my laptop. "Evidence," they'd said. I sat at my desk now, staring at the empty rectangle where it had always glowed. The desk looked wrong without it, as though I'd lost both a tool and a limb. A knock came at the door, gentler this time. Mrs. Patel shuffled in, carrying a Tupperware of dal and rice. She placed it on the counter with firm hands. "For both of you, you need warmth," she said. Her eyes flicked around the room, taking in the scattered umbrellas, the beanie on the floor, the dented radiator. I knew something was off. Told you, people are careless with codes. I almost smiled. Almost. Instead, I said, "Thank you," and meant it more than I expected. Later, after Patel had gone, Jamie dozed upright, still holding the ice pack. I sat on the rug, legs folded under me, the security key in my palm. The metal had been cleaned by evidence techs, but the burn across my hand from yanking it free throbbed each time I closed my fist. A livid line of red. My proof of being myself. The company called in the evening. Charlie's voice was softer than usual, less bullet points, more pauses. We've suspended the accounts until forensics confirm everything. But Mara, she hesitated. I believe you. Finance saw the logs. None of it fits. You'll need to redo verification once we're clear. We'll sort the invoices. You don't need to worry about your contract. I thanked her, though not worrying was impossible. Still, relief unclenched something in me. Work wouldn't vanish, not yet. As the sky outside darkened, I heard laughter from a flat below, the ordinary spill of neighbors' lives returning. Children squealed at cartoons. Someone fried onions, the smell rising through vents. The estate was itself again, except for me. When Jamie finally left, promising to text every hour until I slept, I tried to reset the flat. I aligned the cutlery back into disorder, spread the umbrellas apart. I wanted to reclaim randomness. My plant looked naked, its dead leaves gone, its stalks cropped. I moved it back to the sill anyway, like setting a stone where it belonged. I washed the dishes, each clink too sharp. The flat stayed quiet, too quiet. At 10, I sat on the sofa, lights low, phone buzzing, with sympathetic texts from neighbors who'd heard police had come. I read none of them. My thumb hovered over Instagram instead. The account that had tagged me earlier had been deleted, vanished. My mentions empty now, as though the stories had never existed. I should have felt relief. Instead, my skin crawled. Deletion meant choice. Someone had tidied away their tracks as neatly as they'd trimmed my plant. I checked the neighborhood forum. The thread about the bakery photo was locked. Moderator's note at the bottom. Due to ongoing police matter, the image was gone. Only comments remained. Neighbors joking about twins, student discounts, mistaken identity. My name floated there still, pinned forever to the conversation. At midnight, I crawled into bed. The sheets smelled faintly of the stranger's aftershave, or maybe it was just memory. I rolled them up and threw them into the laundry basket, then lay on the bare mattress until exhaustion dragged me under. I woke at 3 to a sound. A hiss, low, sustained. My chest seized. For a second, I thought the radiator had revived, carrying with it the proof of intrusion. I padded barefoot into the living room, pulse hammering. It wasn't the radiator, just the kettle, left switched on after rinsing mugs. Steam curled into the dark, harmless. I unplugged it, but my hand shook too much to sleep again. Back in bed, I clutched the security key under my pillow like a child with a talisman. The burn on my hand pulsed, the line raised and raw. The flat was quiet, my own again. And yet, as I closed my eyes, I kept seeing his face, so close to mine, altered but familiar, promising in that calm voice, "See you again."